Welcome back, everyone, to the T.R.O.N podcast, The Randomness of Nothing. This is your host, Rashad Woods. Today, I have a very special guest today, world traveler, entrepreneur at a very young age, has a compelling background in the path to success. If you want to get some tips to it, this man is right here and carved out some special time for me. Mr. Dennis Meador, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for joining me from heaven.
It's a nice perspective up here, man. You know, St. Peter was very kind to me when he let me pass the pearly gates, so I have no complaints.
Yeah, there nice, you go.
Man. That was slick.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here. I enjoyed our chat before we've started. We even color coordinated a little bit. Not quite. You know, you're on the peach. I'm more on the reddish side. But
salmon,
we color coordinated. You're joining from heaven. I'm not going to say where I'm joining from, but it's not there. And yeah, let's do this thing.
For sure. Well, first of all, that was wild, man. Right. So my name in heaven. I mean, I can only hope, man. So here's hoping I did enough good on this earth. So I'm here already, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So you have a compelling story. First of all, you're the owner and CEO of Legal Podcast Network, but that's not just who you are. You've started multiple companies since the age of 14. You've had world travels, and you've allowed your business to really give you a foundation to build a successful team and very satisfied clients. So please give us a little background about you.
A little. So, I'll give the abridged version and then we can circle back on certain things. Mm-hmm. A child of need becomes an adult that knows how to fulfill needs. And so I did have a period of my childhood that I was a child of need and had to find ways to make things happen, both for me, my sister, and in many ways, my mom. And so I think, honestly, that was the training ground for both my entrepreneurship and my therapy bills. I said that kind of tongue in cheek, but then I realized the context and maybe that was a little, but no, seriously, I do think that is what made me who I am. I don't show it a lot just because of who my clients are, but I'm tattooed from here to here on both arms and then a couple on my chest. I got one on my back in
would have never guessed
Thailand earlier this year. Yeah, nice. Exactly. Everybody that lives on the island with me, they just see me in tank tops and flip flops all the time. And then I put these podcasts out and then they're like, who is that guy? So I learned how to pay attention to what was going on around me. I learned to look for opportunities. I learned to look for the easy, or maybe the easy isn't the right way. I learned, I never use the word cheap. I always say cost effective. So, I don't want to say lazy or easy, but I learned to find a way to do things efficiently. And I've never been one to waste my energy.
Right.
And so that translated into 14 years old. Now I've moved in with my father, moved out of the other situation. And I have a stepbrother now, a couple years younger than me. We go out and just through kind of a whim on a snowy day, we went out and started shoveling walks. Him and his friend didn't like knocking on the doors. I said, I'll knock on the doors and get the customers. You guys do the work.
Yeah.
And that became a whole business where I had lawns, lawn mowing jobs.
Nice.
Snow shoveling jobs, leaf raking. I had all the paper routes within walking distance. And then I would just sell those in essence back to the younger kids in my neighborhood.
Right.
But I would collect the money and do all that. So I was the front man and they were the labor, if you will. So that really showed me at a fairly young age the power of utilizing resources outside of yourself to find success and to find money. Because the reason I got into it and wanted to make money is because I was in a rich private school. We didn't have a lot of money. We were definitely lower middle class, and these people were firmly on the top tier of middle class. My stepmom actually worked in the morning so we could go to that school. So I was like, I wanted to fit in. But my parents were like, listen, you're not dying, you're not starving, and you're not naked. You got a room. So anything outside of that, that's on you, kid.
It's on you. Yep.
Exactly. So that's what I did. Got the Jordans, got the Bugle Boys. You might not, Rashad. I can't place your age, but
42.
Okay. 48. So, so you remember a little bit of the Bugle Boy
era,
pardon me, are those Bugle Boy jeans that you're wearing?
Oh, absolutely.
So, I got the Bugle Boys, I got the OP Ocean Pacific, I got all the cool brands and the cool shoes.
British Knights?
BKs were a little bit before I got into it.
Okay.
By the time I got into it, it was all Jordan everything, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So started that business and then did that for a few years. Always had one or two jobs, always. And then into my late teens, I got married at 19. I was a pastor at 18 and started my first business around that time as well.
Yeah.
21, 22, I think, I was able to move over to Romania and built a
Wow.
house there. And, you know, I mean, you can brag about
Unbelievable.
building a house there, but it was like 20 grand. It wasn't like, you know, we
Still.
built it on my now ex-wife's family property.
Mhm.
And that's where we live. So I saw the advantages then because I started running my company with laptops and phone cards. This is like early thousands, like one, two,
Ahead of the
three,
curve.
somewhere in there. Yeah, way before people are talking about remote work, right?
Right.
You know, there was offsite employees, but that no one talked about remote work. But I was running my company with phone cards and dial-up internet, and did that
Unbelievable.
for a few years. And then after kind of all of that went through its process, had I don't want to say a falling out, me and my business partner, maybe we can get into that story. He basically bankrupted the company in his name and the contract he had with me and reopened it in his wife's name. And then that put him on a path of doing it every 6 months. He ended up in prison for a few years because of his new business model after working with me. And so I did that. Because of that, I was a little bit hesitant to to open a company and hire people, because when I was working with him, my sister and brother-in-law, like I had my cousin move in, you know, from like across country, friends, family come in. I was pastoring a
Unbelievable.
little church out in the middle of nowhere, and it had
Right.
grown, but a lot of those people were working for me. And, you know, it's just kind of
You
like,
roll
and
with
then
it.
when I had to close it, I had to look across the desk from those people.
Oh,
And, you know, at 20, I guess I'm 24, 25 maybe. And you're just not emotionally equipped to have somebody who a week before, some 40-year-old woman, a week before told you saved your life, now tells you, I think you're the
it's
biggest
over.
scam artist and liar on the planet.
Exactly. Yep.
So,
Yep.
you
Yep. Oh
know,
my
I
God.
did the whole
Gut
so
wrenching.
I did it can't that's why it took me a solid 5 years after that. I just did consulting work where I would go in and, you know, I would develop a sales process, especially if they didn't have inside sales set up. So there's a lot of companies at that time like, oh, maybe we should be doing more inside. Inside was no longer telemarketing, it was inside sales. That stigma had been removed from the B2B industry as a whole. So
Right.
I came in and I was like, man, I've been selling this stuff forever. I've been script writing since I was 18. So I'd go in and just do like 6-month projects. I'd live off the residuals from that for a while, do another project, that sort of thing. And
Nice.
then that leads me to, I mean, there's a lot of little steps, but that leads me to what we're doing now. Attorneys have been kind of my specialty since that business closed down. The first thing I ended up doing when I was just working by myself or for myself is I ended up selling attorneys $5,000 a month, kind of like legal match, which basically you like fill out the form and then they have a rotation of 1 to 3 attorneys.
Right.
And so I ended up selling them, and I was like, man, I like attorneys. Like, you know, I like the niche. I liked the conversations. I liked that I
Yes.
didn't have to be emotional and manipulative to sell a product to them. And
Correct.
I've kind of stuck with it since. Now I guess it's 22 years that I've been working with attorneys.
Unbelievable.
Not
Yeah.
exclusively, but mostly.
Right. And I thought was fascinating about what you created when it came to the Legal Podcast Network, when I saw one of your previous episodes, was you're not an attorney yourself. Like I was like, well, I just assumed, I was waiting for the part where you were a practicing attorney and maybe this was a deviated path you went on. And then you went on to say, well, no, you actually went to a uncredited college in Ohio, right? I'm like, well, dang. You're like, how did this guy even think, you know, because the background just on paper, you're just like, wow, that's a huge leap. Because attorneys can be very, very, obviously they're still people, but to get in that profession, you can't be BSing. You know what I mean? And to
No.
be able to sell them something, it has to be authentic, because their livelihood depends on being able to sniff out things that are not real or not legit. So how did you manage to do that without a legal background?
I don't have an answer to that. I've been one of those people that have always been able to talk to people. I, of course, was the kid everyone said you're going to be a lawyer when you grow up. And maybe if I'd have been in a different socioeconomic situation, I might have had that option. That wasn't an option for me, nor was it really a desire by the time I got to that time, because I'd already experienced entrepreneurship and things like that. I think, you know, one, again, I was a youth pastor at 16, pastor at 18. So I was a voracious reader as a young child. Like, I'd get grounded and my parents would be like, I don't even know why we ground you. You're happy to sit in your room and read for 5 hours. It's
Right.
almost like the opposite of a punishment for you.
Exactly.
So,
That's awesome.
so I was a voracious reader from a very young age. And so I have a pretty big vocabulary. As a matter of fact, for me, what I tell people is if you hear me speaking in mostly big words, that probably means I'm working with diminished capacity, not like the medical term, but I'm just not sharp, because typically I can take those words that are in my head and translate them and speak. But if I
Right.
don't have that internal translator, it does that. So talking
Right.
with attorneys, having a big vocabulary. Again, I was an independent fundamental Baptist preacher who
Mhm.
knocked on doors, who stood on street corners and shouted where they could hear me for 3, 4 blocks, who
Wow.
talked to people that were, 4, 5, 6 people, diffused crowd situations where they were trying to attack me or the guy behind me that was preaching.
Right. Right.
So I had enough of a background that I had zero fear of who I talked to, and I was able to speak to the attorneys intelligently
Hmm.
on their level. And I've always been one of those people. I personally don't think I'm smarter than other people, and I don't think anybody's smarter than me. Now, let me put that caveat. It's just like the Darwin quote, right? You don't judge a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree. So
Correct.
it's different sets of knowledge. My brother, if you wanted him to be on this podcast, he wouldn't. But if he ended up showing up, and this is my youngest brother, he manages like the mechanics part or whatever, the garage in a Tractor
Mhm.
Supply store.
Right.
So he's been taking things apart since he was 3 years old and building
Unbelievable.
engines and doing all that
Unbelievable.
stuff, right?
What a skill. What
So,
a skill.
but and I'm the kind of guy, literally, I don't hang pictures because like it's not going to be right. I'm going to mess something up and might as well get somebody in here that knows what they're doing. And I've got a guy on the
Opposite.
island. He comes by
Yeah.
that you do it all yourself. And I'm
Right.
just, I'm just not that way.
Right, just opposite skills, right? So, and you find out, and
Exactly.
I thought what was important when I saw some of your previous podcasts was that it's not about what you do well; it's who you give it to do better than you, or at least you're big on delegation. You're big on
Absolutely.
don't take 2 hours to make this spreadsheet when you should be focusing on your core competency in your business. So if you're selling a product, it's better to go ahead and long term look for either to offshore it, contract it out, to give it to somebody to specialize in that. So that way you can work on satisfying your client base.
Absolutely. That's a huge thing in my company. And all I do, I was jokingly telling my team yesterday, because right now they're getting a little bit, I don't want to say a reprieve because that sounds like I'm a taskmaster. And
Yeah.
I'd like to feel that my team wouldn't feel that way about me. But typically I do what I call manage by walking around. Now,
Mhm.
my team is virtual, so I can't pop into the Philippines, pop into my 20 people in Pakistan, pop
Mhm.
into my guy in South Africa, pop down to Venezuela,
Right.
pop over the other side of the island, pop to 17 places in the US. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can't manage by walking around, but I can look at reports and things like that.
For sure.
Um, but right now, we have two crucial roles. So I'm literally doing both of those roles while I'm managing the company. So I'm not doing that managing by walking around. But
Mhm.
one of the things I often find myself doing when I'm managing by walking around is nothing more than saying, okay, I see that you worked, like you talked about, a spreadsheet. You're my
Mhm.
copywriter. You went to school for this. You're a second, and I'm giving this is actually a person. I actually haven't had to get on her for this. She's good with it, but that's why I'm using her as an illustration. So, you went to college for copywriting. You do a great job with it. You're second generation. Your dad was like a real great copywriter. That's what brought you into the industry. So why am I looking at your workflow and I'm seeing that you're building a list of, people to email for the marketing department? Like, why are you
Right.
segmenting data right now?
Right.
So
Right.
I very much stick to that: better, faster, less friction. That's what we really
Yes.
try to do constantly.
Right. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing because, the way you did, I saw the example that you gave where you were like, there's three tiers of businesses, right? There's somebody who just wants to, have basically replace their lifestyle, so to speak. Then there's a somebody who wants to grow, but reach a certain level of 1 to 3 to 5 people, 2 to 5 people. And then there's an actual, company where the needs start to change and you start to build a cultivated team. And you've built successful companies. You've brought companies that were, 1 to 3 million in less than a year and have done it multiple times. But it also took levels of failure too. So how did you learn from your
Absolutely.
failures to get to where you're at? Because sometimes people look at, man, that guy has it all, man. He goes to Europe and he travels, and I'm just a guy, quote unquote, bagging groceries.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's the path to success is strewn with broken failures. Like it, and that's what people don't understand. Failures. And I think personally, my biggest failure has been in choosing my partners. And I covered this in another podcast, so I don't want to go super deep into it. But
Yeah, for sure.
that has been where I've learned the most, is because I have a tendency to see the best in people,
Hmm.
and I have a tendency to just believe them. That's probably been, with delegation, like I believe I delegated it to you. You said you're going to handle it. You're an adult. I'm paying you. Okay, I'm going to step away.
Right.
And it didn't happen often, but every once in a while I find somebody and I'm just like, you've literally been giving me false work for 2 weeks straight. No wonder your numbers, like your what I call your most important numbers, no wonder those numbers have tanked because you've done 8 hours of work in 22 minutes with a dialer. And, you've dialed 150 dials in 22 minutes. That normally takes about 5 hours of dialing.
Right.
So,
right.
I eventually had to go, okay, how do I help these people understand that there has to be some sort of like
accountability?
Yeah, accountability without them feeling as if they're, so right when I hire them, I tell them, because of accountability, because of the past, we have this in place. If your core metrics are where they need to be, I really don't even check it.
Yes.
But if your core metrics start slipping, this is your accountability. Now I'm going to be able to go back and go, okay, well, in an 8-hour day that you said you worked 8 hours, this time warp says you're only working 2.5 hours.
For sure.
So where's the extra 6.5 hours or 5.5 hours here? So I think that was the biggest thing, is learning not to trust people implicitly without becoming a distrusting individual. I think that has been the biggest thing I've had to learn in life and in business.
That's really a key trait too, because it's trust but verify, and it's a tough. And I think, how did you have to learn to be hands off, so to speak? Because very often, the person that starts the business, starts the company, wears all hats just by default, right? And then where does it come to the point where I almost need to meter myself and say, whether it's Legal Podcast Network, obviously, I'm sure you learn lessons along the way to get here, to not make those same mistakes early. But even at your paper route, you have to say, okay, I have to delegate and I have to give up this in order to be successful at something else. Because it's like, it's like an athlete, right? You can't pass, shoot, rebound.
Right.
You have to pass the ball at some point, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think that for me, it was an innate ability. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. Me and my sister were together until I was about 13. Then we added 2 more stepbrother, stepsister. And then my mom and dad had 2 more when I was like 15 or so. And then when I was like 17 or so. So it was his, hers, and theirs, 2, 2, and 2, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, all of us about roughly 2 years apart. So it's kind of funny, but my parents would be like, can you ever do anything on your own? We tell you to take the trash and you're like, come on, Josh. We tell you to go do this. You're like, come on, Tiff. Like, you never do anything. And then when we go see how you're doing on the task, you're not doing it. You're managing it and you're stepping back, and they're the ones doing it. So I think that delegation, to me, I think one of the keys, that the ways that I found delegation works the best, and this has been through leadership as a pastor, a youth pastor, a missionary, a business owner in many times over, leadership positions, really since I've been very young. What I've learned is, if you can get people to get emotional buy-in on what they're doing and take pride in what they're doing, you don't have to micromanage them.
Absolutely.
So what I try to do is I try to find the thing that this person on my team, it is the thing that they're passionate about and they're good at. And then I try to clear everything else out of the way. And I say, all right, this is you own this.
Right.
If it succeeds, you're going to get all the credit and trust me, you will get a raise.
Right.
If it fails, then it's a lesson.
Right.
And sometimes what I do, like we have what we call a dead list. And it's a list of people that, if they don't interact with our daily e-newsletter for, I think, like 6 months straight, we just basically say, listen, I don't know if it's going in their spam folder or what, but they've literally never opened it, interacted with it 6 months. So we just shove that into a list. Right. So I had a new copywriter and I told her, listen, we're going to build this list. There's like 15,000 attorneys in here. The bar is extremely low because these people for 6 months never replied to us once. So all I'm looking to see is, can you get the people that we can't normally get to pay attention?
Exactly.
So it doesn't affect our main way of marketing, but it gives me an opportunity to see how she does and judge her copywriting ability with a real life metric, which is attorneys who ignored our other copy are paying attention to hers. So that's how I'm able to delegate, is I just hand it over to them and say, this is you. This is your thing. If it fails, you're going to walk away knowing it's because of your lack of effort or lack of knowledge or lack of gaining knowledge. If it succeeds, you're going to get to take the credit for it.
Absolutely.
And when I do that with people, they tend to take a hold of that and buy in way more than if you just go, all right, I'm going to pay you this per hour. I want you this, and this task done. And I'm going to have these reports on my desk every 3 hours. And
and judge your productivity, and you suck or you're
exactly
great, on that, unemotional scale, so to speak. Right.
Yes.
So let's talk about the specifics of Legal Podcast Network. I'm sure you've explained this 20,000 times on various different platforms.
No worries.
But for this specific show, I got a chance because it's something unique where, attorneys have a very, I would imagine, one way of doing business, but the digital era changed the way that they had to market themselves in order to get clients, not face-to-face anymore. People do Google searches. They go through, like you said, the legal match, so to speak. So how does that actually work? I've seen it myself, but just for explanation purposes.
Well, I mean, essentially what we're trying to do is make an attorney the thought leader for their case type for their specific market. Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to put them on the American Bar Association stage as a thought leader. Mm-hmm. We're trying to get them an extra 15 calls and 5 clients or 10 clients a month through showing up locally with it. And what we've learned is if I give you a podcast and you're a lawyer and not a marketer, you're going to put the podcast up and be like, 10 people watch it. This is a waste of my money. So then what we started doing is we're like, okay, let's build ancillary marketing to it so that this will help them. So then we built out pages. We put FAQ pages on their site, which helps a lot with SEO and query-based, especially with everything going query-based. And then we build for every 20 minutes they spend answering questions because it's a 30-minute show slot. It's usually 17 to 21 minutes is the finished episode. It's about 7 to 10 questions, depending on how fast they answer. They get the questions ahead of time. The questions are based off of their client ideal. So high net worth individual having a divorce. And then so when that person is searching, all of a sudden this one attorney just keeps, it's not, I do that, call me. It's like, oh, you have a question about your car during a divorce?
Oh, you mean like the CEO at the Coldplay concert who might be looking for services?
Yeah, exactly. We're writing content right now for him in all the markets within a 10-hour radius now. Yeah. But he would probably have a very specific question, how much stock must I give up in a divorce?
Oh my gosh.
Because as we all know, any big corporation, that's where their real money lies anyway.
Absolutely.
So we built that. So for every 20 minutes they spend answering questions, we're able to do a month's worth of marketing.
Beautiful.
So 10 shorts or reels, 10 audiograms, and then 10 what we call static posts advertising a particular episode. Everything then goes back to a link tree type of, we use a different one. I think it's called bio.page or something.
Yeah.
And it's got their website, their YouTube channel that we created, their Apple channel we created, their Spotify channel. And then the person can go and consume their content to a greater degree.
That's really cool.
Whatever they want.
That's really, really cool.
So I always tell people the podcast itself is just a lemming for a holistic marketing approach.
Yes.
But if I say, hey, attorney, would you like a holistic marketing approach based off of video and audio distribution? They're going to be like, what the? But they go to these conferences and they're like, you need a podcast. Get a podcast. Have a podcast. Right. And then my team goes, hey, you want a podcast? They're like, how's it work? And then we're like, come here. I'll tell you about it. And then we put our arm around and we're like, listen, if you do this, you do this. We do this. We do this. We work together. We're going to make you this in your market. What do you think? And about 60% of the time, and I'm not the sales guy anymore, but with my guys that do it, 60% of the time, they say, sure, and they sign.
That's beautiful.
So probably another 20% of the time they say, sure, and then they have cold feet and disappear. And another 20% of the time they say, nope, leave me alone. I'm never going to do this.
What size of company? I'm sorry.
We're really 1 to 10s is what we focus on because I don't like selling to committees. I've done it before with a program that I did. And selling to committees is just, great news, horrible news. We just met it. We're going to do this. Oh, there's one guy that we got to get on board. It's just it's like riding, in the sea. Whereas when you've got that 1 or 2 partners in a law firm, you get them both in that. You answer all their questions and you're like, listen, you've got all the information. Let's make a decision.
Right.
And what we do is we incentivize them. We don't try to one-call close. We say, because my biggest expense for my team is following up. So the less we have to follow up with you, the less money we spend to gain you as a client. Right. So what we do is we say, listen, if you make a decision within the next 24 hours, setup fee gets cut in half. So we're paying you $500 to make a decision. If you need 3 days, then we're going to cut down $300 off of it. And anything beyond 5 days or beyond, sorry, it's back to the full price. And people are like, oh, I don't like this manipulation tactic. I'm like, it's not a manipulation tactic. It's really just I have your attention. I don't want to present this product to you 3 times over the next year and a half before you become my client. And that's what
Right.
happens in a lot of these programs is they love it. They're in the demo. Call me back in a week or two. They're in court. Call back, and now you are 3 months later and they're like, well, how did that work again? Then you have to do another demo, so
Well, yeah.
we just incentivize them up front. Make your decision.
Well, it's no different than buying a plane ticket or anything like that, right? I mean, like at the end of the
Right.
day, the price is the price based upon the time that you plan something, and the closer it gets to where you want to go.
I like that. I'm going to give that to my guys when people
True.
people go on them.
You buy is the plane ticket the same price, a day before than it was a week ago? No, it's not. It's based on supply and demand, right? So
Exactly.
Same principles apply. So here's my question though: Do you find a generational divide that's more interested in your services, like the older client firm, the older attorney that's
most of our clients are probably late 50s through early 60s.
Okay.
They're the people that believe in technology but didn't live it their whole life, so
Correct.
They're not quite familiar with it. And even and we have people younger than that for sure, and attorneys that are younger than that because they realize like
that's the way it has to be.
We have people that they had their own podcast team. We've had a marketing firm that had their own podcast product, that they were doing their own podcast and they were doing attorneys' podcasts. And they came to us and said, for what you're charging and the quality that you're doing, we're shutting down our podcast division. We're going to send you referrals from our client base and we want to show on your network.
Exactly.
And I was like, works for me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not their core business model either, too. Right. So like,
exactly.
It's not their core business model, right?
And that's the same thing right now. I'm going to look through because I think we have about 5 or 6 referral agencies right now. I'm going to look through and see price wise and everything because we took on 1 or 2 clients for websites because they needed a website. And we were like, oh, you know what? I did SEO PPC for 15 years before here. And my team, a lot of my team has followed me over from my old partnership. Not a lot of them, but a fair amount of them where I know they can do it. And so they end up getting into the podcast, or I'm sorry, they end up getting into it. And then, it just puts them in a much better position.
Of course. And so, I've always been fascinated by stories like yours because it's taken you around the world in different travels and different places and different people. We talked about that a little previously before the show started, but you're not just the guy that runs the Legal Podcast Network. You have other interests. I saw that you actually love to cook, right? So the notorious PIT, so to speak, right? So
there we go.
Which I thought,
I brought the notorious PIT to Belize. It is sitting on the island, but here's the problem: the island doesn't have wood that we can smoke.
Really?
And there's only one kind of wood on the mainland that we can really use because they don't smoke here; they just make charcoal. And so, smoker wood, you can't There's a little bit of oak on the mainland. And that's about it. And so I've got to smoke 3 times in 3 years with it. It's kind of like my sad thing because also we're getting ready to move to Merida, Mexico.
Yeah.
Or actually probably Progreso, which is on the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
And I'm leaving it here. I'm going to try to find somebody to sell it to and just be like, hey, if you can get, because it cost me $150 to buy the wood, apple chunks, and charcoal. It cost me $100 just to run one smoke for ribs for 6 hours. Wow. Because the only smoker wood is in those, those little 3-pound bags with the wood chunks. So I'd have to buy 10 of those and then charcoal to keep to keep my core temp and then throw that on. And then I'd be $150. Boom.
Dang. That's crazy.
So people would be like, let me pay you for these ribs. And I'm like, that'll be $50. And you're like, what? I'm like, okay, then don't ask.
Exactly. Well, I thought I would ask the most important question of the day is how's your ribs and how's your pit going, right? So that to me,
my ribs,
I'm telling you.
There's nothing, you know what? You could tell me I have the greatest business you've ever seen in your life, and I'll be like, oh, thanks. But if you tell me that you just ate the best ribs you've ever had in your life, which I've had a few people tell me. So I watched a lot of Food Network for a lot of years. It took me about 10 years to perfect my ribs. Right. So, but if you try them and you tell me these are the best ribs I ever had, I'm just like, that's right.
Through the moon. And what's crazy is I've interviewed various different people to different walks of life, right? And people who are vegans, vegetarians, and I would never. I love all my guests, but I'm like, man, I don't know if I could not eat ribs. I'm telling you, man, it's it's a leap of faith that I don't know if I could endure not being able to do that. And so
I
hopefully
always
one
tell
day I'll.
people I was my 20-year-old, or yeah, 20, she's 20 now. When my first wife was pregnant with her, she got sick like in her first trimester. So my dad had went on what was called the Hallelujah diet. It was essentially a vegan diet. And I always tell people I was the world's worst vegan for about a year because I would sneak away about twice a week, stop into Popeyes, stop into McDonald's, something like that. But the rest of the week, I'm eating like, shredded lettuce and like raw foods and cashew dressings and like, like all the, and I'm just like, and about twice a week, I'm just like, I got to get out of here and get some real food.
I mean, I can only imagine, man. Like, I mean, like I said, I mean, I've done it for a day or two, and you're just like, I mean, you're conditioned. But to the guests that have had it, sorry if I offended you. Like that, no diss. Like I said, I love
Hey, to
every
each
person.
their own.
Exactly. So it's an awesome feeling.
Well, Rashad, I booked back to back. And I had you, so I need to go. I think we could talk for like an hour and a half, my friend.
I think
If you want to have me back on and you could think of a subject from something else, I'd love to come back on. These half-hour ones always get me. Let me jump over to this other podcast, make sure they
it's
didn't
all
ditch
good.
me.
No, it's all good. So we're
And
gonna wrap
I've
this
really
up.
enjoyed our time, man.
I really
Okay, let's wrap
appreciate
it
you.
up.
Thanks for being on, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And anything I can do, just let me know. Give me a telegram from heaven, and we'll get it done.
I appreciate you. So I'll let you know how it is above. Talk to you soon, brother. Bye.
Thanks, man. Bye.